My mother looked at me like I was a stranger and said, "We're not your nannies." I had just asked her to watch my son for 3 hours. This, after I'd paid off her mortgage and bought her a car. So I walked away and made one phone call to my lawyer, setting a trap they never saw coming. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The email chime was offensively cheerful. I squinted at my laptop screen, the brightness stabbing at the migraine that had been building behind my right eye for hours. Final round interview. Partner position, the subject line read. It was the email I had been working toward for 15 years. It represented late nights, missed dinners, and a level of financial security I desperately wanted for my own small family. My son Leo coughed in his sleep from the next room, a dry, rasping sound that twisted my stomach. He'd been home from preschool for 2 days with a fever, and my husband, David, had used the last of his personal days to cover the first 48 hours. Now it was my turn. Juggling a sick toddler and a high-stakes financial quarter was difficult, but this interview, scheduled for next Tuesday at 10:00 a.m., was impossible. I couldn't bring a sick 4-year-old to a boardroom meeting that would decide the entire future of my career. There was only one option: my parents. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Mom. A familiar, acidic anxiety pooled in my gut. It was a feeling I'd had since childhood, the preemptive brace for disappointment. But this was different, I told myself. This wasn't asking for a favor. This was a simple, reciprocal family action. I wasn't my sister, Tessa, asking for a handout. I was Grace, the responsible one, the one who fixed things. I tapped the screen. It rang twice. "Grace, what's wrong?" Her voice was immediately sharp, laced with the assumption that my call meant trouble. "Hi, Mom. Nothing's wrong. Leo's just a bit under the weather. Listen, I have some great news. I'm in the final round for a partnership at the firm." "Oh," she said. The disinterest was a physical blow. "That's nice, dear. Your father and I were just about to head out. We're looking at new patio furniture." "That's great, Mom," I said, forcing enthusiasm. "The new set will look wonderful by the pool." The pool, I reminded myself, that I had paid to have resurfaced last summer. "So, the interview is next Tuesday at 10 in the morning. David's out of leave and I really need to be there. I was hoping you and Dad could watch Leo for just a few hours. Just 3 hours, max. He'll probably just sleep." The silence on the other end of the line stretched. I could hear the faint sound of a television in the background. I pictured her standing in the kitchen I had remodeled, leaning against the quartz countertop I'd picked out, a look of profound inconvenience on her face. "Tuesday," she finally said, as if I'd asked her to donate a kidney. "At 10. "Yes," I said, my voice shrinking. "It's the only time they had." Then she laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh, it was a short, sharp scoff. "Grace, you can't be serious. Your father has his golf game on Tuesday, and I have my book club luncheon. We're not your nannies." I froze. The words echoed in the quiet of my home office. "We're not your nannies." It wasn't just the refusal, it was the contempt. It was the reduction of my 15-year career milestone into an inconvenient scheduling conflict. It was the implication that I, the daughter who had single-handedly secured their retirement, was treating them like hired help simply by asking for one single favor. Behind the shock, a cold, hard anger began to form. I thought of the late-night calls from her, panicked about the ballooning interest on their mortgage. I thought of the spreadsheets I'd built, the investments I'd moved, the personal bonus I had sacrificed to wipe that debt clean. I thought of the gleaming new sedan in their driveway, a car leased under my name, paid by my firm, because their old one was embarrassing. I thought of my sister, Tessa, who hadn't called them for their last birthdays, but who received a monthly allowance from them, an allowance funded entirely by me. "Grace, are you there?" my mother's voice demanded, impatient. "You'll just have to reschedule your little meeting, or David can handle it. That's what husbands are for." I looked at the email. Final round, reschedule, as if it were a coffee date. Something in me didn't just break, it clicked into place. The anxiety in my stomach vanished, replaced by the glacial calm I usually reserved for hostile negotiations. I recognized this moment. It was a breach of contract. "You're right, Mom," I said, my voice unnervingly steady. "You are not my nannies." I didn't raise my voice, I didn't list. My grievances, I didn't beg. "Grace, don't be." I hung up the phone. I sat there for a full minute, the silence of the house pressing in. The migraine was still there, but it no longer mattered. My path, which had been a tangled mess of familial obligation and personal ambition, was now crystal clear. I had been managing my parents' lives as a dutiful daughter, but they had just redefined our relationship. They weren't family. They were dependents who had just insulted their sole benefactor. I picked up my phone again. My first call was to a high-end childcare service, the kind that catered to executives and emergencies, the kind that cost a fortune per hour. I booked a bonded caregiver for Tuesday, the fee astronomical. I paid it without blinking. My second call was to my lawyer. "Hi, Tom," I said, my voice cool and professional. "I need you to draw up some documents. We're making some immediate changes to the Brenda and Mark family trust. As of today, I'm initiating a full review of terms. Halt the next stipend." The betrayal was worse than the refusal. It was the realization that I wasn't their daughter, I was their utility. The immediate aftermath was quiet, deceptively so. I told David what had happened, my voice flat as I relayed the conversation. He sat on the edge of the bed, his face tightening. David, a software engineer with a mind as logical as my own, had long been wary of my parents' entitled behavior, but he'd always supported my attempts to keep the peace. "She said what?" he asked, his voice low. "We're not your nannies," I repeated. The words tasted like ash. "She told me to reschedule the partner interview." David stood up and began pacing the room, a rare sign of his anger. "After everything, Grace, after the mortgage, after that ridiculous car, and Tessa, don't get me started on Tessa." He stopped and looked at me, his eyes softening as he took in my exhausted expression. "What did you do?" "I booked a service for Tuesday," I said, "and I called Tom. I've paused the trust stipend pending a review." David stared, then a slow smile spread across his face. "Good," he said, and the simple validation felt like a lifeline. "It's about time. What about the car?" "One thing at a time," I said. "I need to think." My migraine, which had receded in the heat of the moment, came roaring back. I felt emotionally and physically drained, the sickness of betrayal settling deep in my bones. Leo coughed again, and I went to him, stroking his warm forehead, his small, trusting face a stark contrast to the casual cruelty I'd just experienced. I had built a fortress of financial security around my parents, and they had just lobbed a grenade back at me from the safety of its walls. The next day, my phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at the screen, my heart thudding, but the cold resolve from the day before held firm. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a masterpiece of passive aggression. "Grace, darling, just calling to see how little Leo is feeling. I hope you weren't too upset yesterday. You know how Tuesdays are. Your father and I were thinking, perhaps we could take Leo for ice cream next weekend if he's better. It's just your timing was so poor. Anyway, call me back. We need to discuss the new grill we're looking at." Not a word of apology, not a hint of reconsideration. Just a complete, oblivious steamroll over the incident, ending with a request for another purchase. I deleted the message. She called twice more that day. I ignored both. Late that afternoon, an unnerving visit. I was in the kitchen, making broth for Leo, when the doorbell rang. My heart leaped into my throat. I glanced through the peephole and saw my father, Mark, standing on the porch, shifting his weight awkwardly. I opened the door. He was holding a small, wilting bouquet of grocery store flowers. "Grace," he said, shuffling his feet. He wouldn't meet my eye. "Your mother's worried. You're not answering her calls." "I've been busy, Dad. Leo's sick, and I have a major presentation to prepare." Right, he mumbled. He pushed the flowers toward me. These are, well, your mother thought you might like them. I took them, thank you. I didn't invite him in. He lingered, clearly sent on a mission he was ill-equipped to handle. Listen, about the other day, your mother, she's just stressed. The book club, it's her week to host. I just looked at him, stressed, because she had to set out cheese and crackers. She didn't mean it like it sounded, Grace. He tried again, finally looking at me, his eyes pleading. Pleading for me to fix it, to smooth it over, to be the one to apologize. How did she mean it, Dad? I asked, my voice quiet. He flinched. Well, you and David make good money, you can afford help. We're retired, we're on a fixed income. The audacity of that statement, from a man standing on the porch of a house he couldn't afford, to a daughter who provided that fixed income, was breathtaking. The trust wasn't just a fixed income, it was a generous stipend, far more than their pensions, designed to give them a life of luxury. I see, I said. The ice in my veins was spreading. So, because I am successful, I am not entitled to ask my own parents for a simple family favor. But because you are retired, you are entitled to my success. Is that the arrangement? My father's face turned a dull red. Now, Grace, that's not what I'm saying. You're twisting my words. We've done our time. We raised you and Tessa. It's your turn to handle your own responsibilities. My responsibilities, I repeated, nodding slowly. You've made that very clear. Thank you for clarifying, Dad. So you'll call your mother? He pressed, desperate to report mission accomplished. She's worried sick. She's not worried, Dad. She's annoyed that I'm not playing my part, but the rules have changed. What does that mean? I held his gaze. It means I'm handling my own responsibilities. You should go. I have work to do. I closed the door, his confused and sputtering protest cut off mid-sentence. I dropped the sad flowers directly into the trash. As I walked away, a single, recurring thought echoed in my mind, a phrase that had been my mantra in every tough negotiation I'd ever led. They forgot who holds the leverage. They had forgotten one crucial thing, and I was about to remind them. To understand the chill that settled in my heart, you have to understand the years I spent building the fire that kept them warm. My entire life, I was the reliable one. Grace, the planner. Grace, the fixer. Grace, the one who would show up. My sister, Tessa, was the creative one, the dreamer, the one who needed protecting. From the time we were children, our roles were set. I got straight A's, managed a part-time job, and paid for my own first car, a rusty hatchback that smelled like old crayons. Tessa declared high school stifling, racked up credit card debt on vintage clothes, and my parents co-signed a loan for her brand-new convertible, a graduation gift for a graduation she barely managed. My parents, Brenda and Mark, were not bad people, not in the overt sense. They were just weak. They were easily dazzled by Tessa's chaotic sparkle and easily reliant on my quiet competence. I was the load-bearing wall of the family, and they just kept building on top of me, never checking to see if the foundation was cracking. I went to college on a full scholarship, then clawed my way up the ladder in the ruthless world of finance. Every promotion meant a new family emergency I was suddenly equipped to handle. When their roof leaked, I paid for a new one. When Tessa decided to become a lifestyle blogger and needed a new laptop and camera, I was told it was an investment in her future. I paid for that too. Then came the mortgage. 5 years ago, I was celebrating my promotion to senior analyst when my mother called me, weeping. The adjustable rate mortgage on their house, the house I grew up in, was about to reset. They were facing foreclosure. I spent a month digging through their disastrous finances. They had taken out a second mortgage to fund Tessa's journey of self-discovery through Europe. They had no savings. They were, in short, financially ruined. I didn't just write a check. That would have been a temporary fix. I did what I do best. I structured a solution. I used my entire bonus, a sum that had been earmarked for my and David's own down payment, and restructured their debt. I didn't just pay off the mortgage. I bought the house from them and placed it into a family trust with myself as the sole trustee. They would live there rent-free for the rest of their lives. In return, I took control of their finances. I set up an automated monthly stipend for them, a generous one that would cover all their bills, travel, and hobbies, provided they stuck to a budget. They called me their savior. My mother cried and said I was the best daughter in the world. A year later, the embarrassing car incident happened. Their old sedan was fine, but my father complained that it didn't look right parked in the driveway of such a nice, mortgage-free house. My mother complained it was unsafe, though it had a perfect 5-star rating. I relented. I told them I couldn't buy them a new car, but I could, as a business expense, lease one for them through my firm's corporate account. It was a luxury sedan, pearl white. They were ecstatic. They drove it everywhere, parading it in front of their retired friends, soaking in the envy. All this time, Tessa continued to drift. Her lifestyle blog was a predictable mess of blurry photos and posts about living authentically, which seemed to mean charging expensive brunches to a credit card my parents were still secretly paying off, a leak I discovered and plugged, much to Tessa's fury. She was 34, living in a TR. And apartment she couldn't afford, and viewed me not as a sister, but as the gatekeeper to the family bank. Tessa was the real, invisible antagonist in my life. She was the one who whispered in my mother's ear, painting me as the cold, unfeeling money bags, while she was the warm, struggling artist. She was the one who, I was certain, had amplified my parents' worst, most entitled instincts. I remembered a conversation last Christmas. I'd arrived, tired after closing out a brutal fourth quarter, with thoughtful, practical gifts for everyone. Tessa arrived 2 hours late, empty-handed, with a dramatic story about her car, the one I'd helped her get breaking down. My mother fussed over her, making her a plate, while I sat clearing the wrapping paper. "Grace, you just don't get it," Tessa said, waving her fork at me. "Life isn't about spreadsheets and stock options. It's about experience." "Experience costs money, Tessa," I'd replied, weary. "Only if you're as obsessed with it as you are," she'd snapped. My mother shushed me. "Grace, don't pick on your sister. She's sensitive." Now, standing in my kitchen having just been called a nanny, it all coalesced. My parents' ingratitude wasn't a sudden development. It was the culmination of a lifetime of enabling Tessa's irresponsibility while punishing my stability. They hadn't just forgotten my sacrifices, they had begun to resent them. My success, which they lived off of, was a mirror to their own failures and Tessa's. My fixed income comment from my father sealed it. They genuinely believed the money was theirs, an entitlement, a pension for having raised me. They saw the trust not as a gift I had given, but as a utility I was obligated to provide. The car was not a luxury, but a necessity. And my sister, the sensitive one, was the parasite they were happily feeding, while I was the host they were draining dry. They forgot who holds the leverage. I walked back to my office, my resolve no longer just cold, it was righteous. This wasn't just about a missed babysitting slot. This was about a hostile takeover of my life, and I was finally initiating a defense. Tuesday morning, the job interview. I woke up with a strange, ringing clarity. Leo's fever had broken, and he was sitting up in bed, happily babbling to his stuffed bear. David, bless him, had coffee and toast waiting for me. "Go get 'em," he said, kissing me. "You've got this." At 9:30 a.m., Mrs. Gable arrived. She was from the Elite Care Service, an impeccably dressed woman in her 60s with a kind, professional smile that immediately put me at ease. Leo, sensing a new, calm energy, took to her instantly, showing her his prized collection of toy trucks. The cost for her 3-hour service was, frankly, eye-watering. It was more than my parents spent on groceries in a week. I paid it without a second thought. The interview was a blur of sharp questions, complex financial hypotheticals, and intense scrutiny from 6 senior partners. But I was in my element. The glacial calm that had settled over me during the phone call with my mother was now a laser focus. When they asked how I handled high-pressure conflicts, I almost laughed. I believe in clear, direct communication, I said, my voice even. I identify the core issue, assess all available leverage, and restructure the terms of the engagement. I don't let emotion cloud a negotiation. I stick to the facts. One of the partners, a formidable woman named Cynthia, smiled slightly. And what happens when the other party is unreasonable? Then I allow them to experience the natural consequences of their position, I replied. I find that reality is the most effective negotiating tool. I walked out of that boardroom feeling lighter than I had in a decade. I knew I had nailed it. The weight of my family's expectations, which I hadn't even realized I was carrying, was gone. But the shift from passive victim to active strategist was not yet complete. I had only set the first part of my plan in motion. That afternoon, I called my lawyer, Tom. "The review is complete, Tom," I said. "I've decided to restructure the trust. We're moving from a stipend model to a reimbursement model. From now on, Brenda and Mark will submit all receipts for essential living expenses, utilities, property tax, insurance, groceries. I will review and approve them personally. The discretionary fund is closed, effective immediately." "Grace," Tom said, a note of caution in his voice, "that's a significant change. They're going to feel that." "That is the intention," I said. "They've become confused about the difference between a gift and an entitlement. I'm providing a financial education." "And the other matter?" he asked. "I'm handling that one myself," I said. The other matter was the pearl-white luxury sedan. As I'd structured it, the lease was not in their name. It was a corporate lease under my own consulting firm, a perk of my position. I was the sole signatory. My parents were merely listed as permitted drivers. I opened my laptop and logged into the leasing company's corporate portal. I navigated to the Manage Vehicle page. I clicked Terminate Lease. A pop-up appeared. "Are you sure? Early termination fees may apply." I clicked Confirm. A new window opened. "Please select a date for vehicle repossession." I selected the day after tomorrow. Friday, the 1st of the month. The day their stipend, which wasn't coming, was usually deposited. It was also the day of my mother's big book club luncheon, the one that was so important she couldn't possibly watch her grandson. I then did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into my parents' shared credit card account, the one I had insisted they keep for emergencies only, the one I had foolishly linked to my own accounts to cover any shortfalls. I ran a transaction report for the last 6 months. The investigation wasn't difficult. The truth was laid out in a long, damning list of charges. $300 at Le Fantôme, an absurdly expensive French restaurant. $450 at a high-end Golf Pro shop. $800 at Lazy Boy for a new recliner. The new grill my mother had mentioned, I presumed, was next. But the most staggering, repeated charge was a monthly transfer. $1,500 every single month. It was coded as Tessa's rent. My blood ran cold. I wasn't just funding my parents' lavish retirement. I was paying my 34-year-old sister's rent. They were diverting money from the trust, my money, to continue enabling her, lying to me about it the whole time. The allowance I thought they were giving her from their own funds was actually a massive, direct subsidy I was paying. The rage that filled me was so pure, so sharp, it almost made me dizzy. The "not your nannies" line wasn't just an insult, it was a joke. They were, in fact, professional nannies to a fully grown woman, bankrolled by the daughter they refused to help. This wasn't just ingratitude, this was fraud. I took a screenshot. I downloaded the statements. I attached them to a new email addressed to Tom. "Tom," I wrote, "add this to the file. This is grounds for a formal breach of trust. I want all discretionary funds frozen, effective immediately. And one more thing, I need you to draft a new family agreement. I'll be sending you the terms shortly." I closed the laptop. The trap wasn't just set, it was now armed, and they were walking right into it. They hadn't just forgotten who held the leverage. They had forgotten who I was. Friday, the 1st of the month, D-Day. I had taken the day off. The job offer had come through late Thursday afternoon, partner, with a salary that eclipsed my old one, effective in 2 weeks. David and I had celebrated quietly with a nice bottle of wine. I felt calm, centered, and completely in control. My phone rang at 9:05 a.m. It was my mother. I was in my kitchen, sipping coffee, watching Leo play on the floor. I let it ring. It rang again at 9:07 a.m. and 9:08 a.m. At 9:10 a.m., a text message. Grace, our card was declined at the grocery store. The stipend didn't come. Is something wrong with the bank? Call me immediately. I smiled and took another sip of coffee. At 10:15 a.m., another text. Grace, this isn't funny. I'm calling the bank. Your father is very upset. I replied with a single, simple text. There is no issue with the bank, Mom. The stipend is under administrative review. I'll be in touch when that review is complete. Her response was instantaneous, a flurry of typos. What does that mean? Administrative review? You can't do this. I have my book club today. I have to buy food. I texted back, you are on a fixed income, remember? You'll have to manage. The silence that followed was, I imagined, filled with a dawning, horrified realization. The main event was scheduled for 11:00 a.m. I had received a confirmation email from the leasing company. Our retrieval agent will be at the address between 11:00 a.m. and 12:00 p.m. to repossess the vehicle. At 11:17 a.m., my phone exploded. It was my father. I had never heard him sound the way he did. He wasn't sad or confused or even angry. He was hysterical. Grace, there's a man here with a tow truck. He's trying to take the car. He says the lease is terminated. You have to call them. It's a mistake. It's not a mistake, Dad, I said, my voice as placid as a frozen lake. What are you talking about? He's hooking it up. Grace, your mother's friends are starting to arrive for her luncheon. They're all watching. This is humiliating. Yes, I said, it is. Do something, he shrieked. I am doing something, Dad. I'm handling my own responsibilities. Remember, you told me it was my turn. I heard a muffled sound and then my mother's voice, shrill with panic. Grace Elizabeth, you stop this right now. That is our car. You can't just take it. That's where you're mistaken, Mom, I said, finally letting the ice in my voice show. It was never your car, it was my car. A corporate asset that I, in a moment of extraordinary foolishness, allowed you to drive. You made it clear on Tuesday that our relationship is purely transactional. Well, the terms of the transaction are no longer favorable to me. What are you? I've been reviewing your finances, Mom. The trust's finances. It's fascinating reading. Did you know you're spending $1,500 a month on Tessa's rent? The line went dead quiet. All I could hear was the distant sound of the tow truck's hydraulic lift. How did you? She stammered. You used the emergency credit card I pay for. You've been lying to me for years. Defrauding the trust I set up to protect you, all to fund your 34-year-old daughter's lifestyle, the same daughter who can't be bothered to call you on your birthday. Meanwhile, you, who are living rent-free in a house I own, driving a car I pay for, and living off a stipend I provide, couldn't find 3 hours to watch your own grandson so I could secure my family's future. I let the words hang in the air. The first confrontation, the first reveal. Grace, you don't understand, my mother whispered, her voice suddenly small and desperate. She was going to be evicted. She's sensitive. She can't handle stress like you can. I don't care, I said. The words were freeing. I'm done being the responsible one. I'm done being the bank. The stipend is frozen. The car is gone. Welcome to your fixed income, Mom. I hope the book club enjoys the cheese and crackers, if you could even afford them. I hung up. The immediate reaction, as I had predicted, was not remorse. It was poorly executed threats. Within 5 minutes, my phone rang again. It was Tessa. Grace, she spat, no pretense of sisterly affection. What did you do? Mom is hysterical. You took their car? Are you insane? Hello, Tessa. Nice of you to finally call, I said, breezy. You can't just cut them off. That's their money, they're retired. It's my money, Tessa, and I'm especially interested in the $1,500 of it you've been receiving every month. Tell me, how's that lifestyle blog working out? Does living authentically cover your rent, or is that my job too? She gasped, cornered. Mom told you that, she offered, I didn't ask. You're a liar, I said, my voice flat. And you're a thief. You've been complicit in defrauding a family trust. I wonder how that would look on a credit report, or perhaps a small claims court filing. You wouldn't, she whimpered, her bravado evaporating instantly. Try me. I've been a financial analyst for 15 years, Tessa. I've built entire cases against corporate fraudsters. You don't even rise to the level of a challenge. You're just pathetic. I didn't wait for a reply. I hung up on her too. I turned off my phone. I sat in the quiet of my house. David walked in, took one look at my face, and just nodded. It's done, he asked. It's done, I said. The first domino had fallen. The lies were exposed. The supply line was cut. The silence that followed was the sound of their carefully constructed, entitled world collapsing in on itself. The next 48 hours were a siege. My parents, discovering my phone was off, started emailing. The tone shifted rapidly from indignant rage, day 1, to bewildered panic, day 2. From Brenda, day 1, 3:00 p.m. Subject. This is unacceptable, Grace. This has gone on long enough. Turn the car back on. We are going to the bank on Monday to demand you release our money. You have no right. Your father is beside himself. This is an abuse of your power. From Brenda, day 1, 9:00 p.m. Subject. Please, Grace, your father needs his heart medication from the pharmacy. How is he supposed to get it? You took our car. Are you trying to hurt us? I knew for a fact he used a mail-order pharmacy, and his next delivery wasn't for 2 weeks. A desperate, clumsy lie. From Mark, day 2, 7:00 a.m. Subject. Grace, your mother didn't sleep all night. She's making herself sick. This is cruel. We will apologize. We are sorry we couldn't watch Leo. Just please turn the money back on. This is a nightmare. The desperation was palpable, but the investigation I had done had fortified my resolve. This wasn't just about the nanny comment. It was about years of systematic, deliberate financial deception. The $1,500 monthly payment to Tessa was the core of the rot. I forwarded the desperate emails to Tom, my lawyer. They're starting to bargain, I wrote, but they still don't understand the gravity of the situation. They think this is a tantrum. They don't realize it's a restructuring. What's the next step? He replied. We present the full case, I wrote. It's time for the second confrontation. I turned my phone back on late Saturday afternoon. There were 23 missed calls, and one text message from Tessa that was so full of vitriol and misspelled insults that I simply saved it as evidence. I called my father. He picked up on the first ring. Grace, oh, thank goodness. I am willing to have one and only one meeting, I said, my voice all business. You and Mom will come to my house tomorrow, Sunday, at noon. You will not bring Tessa. If you bring Tessa, I will not open the door and this conversation is over permanently. Do you understand? Yes, of course, Grace. Anything, he babbled. We'll be there, thank you. The next day, exactly at noon, my doorbell rang. David was there, standing with me. He'd taken the day to be my silent support. I opened the door. My parents looked wrecked. My mother's eyes were puffy and red, her face pale. My father looked like he had aged 10 years. They were no longer the smug, entitled retirees from Tuesday. They were defeated. Come in, I said. I didn't hug them. I didn't offer coffee. I led them to the living room where I had David sit with me. Grace, honey, my mother began, her hands twisting in her lap. We are so sorry, what I said. It was a horrible, stupid thing. I was stressed. The book club, It was just a stop, I said. I'm not interested in excuses. This meeting isn't about your feelings, it's about the facts. I motioned to the coffee table. I had laid out 3 documents in a neat line. What is this? My father asked, his voice trembling. This, I said, tapping the first document, is the statement from the emergency credit card. The one I pay. The one that shows a $1,500 payment to Tessa every single month for the last 2 years. That's $36,000 for those of you not counting. My mother let out a small, strangled sob. My father went sheet white. This, I said, tapping the second document, is the original charter for the Brenda and Mark Family Trust. The one you both signed. I'd like to draw your attention to Article 4, Section B. Funds provided by the trust are for the sole and exclusive use of the beneficiaries, Brenda and Mark, and may not be transferred, gifted, or otherwise diverted to a third party without the express written consent of the trustee. I looked up, meeting their eyes. The trustee, that's me. You have been in material breach of this trust agreement for 24 consecutive months. You have been defrauding me. It wasn't like that, my mother cried, lunging for an excuse. She's our daughter, she needed help. I am your daughter, my voice cracked, the first show of emotion I'd allowed. I am the daughter you stole from to give to your other daughter. I am the daughter whose son you refused to watch because you were busy enjoying the life I gave you. I took a deep breath, pushing the emotion back down. And this, I said, tapping the final, thick document, is the new family agreement my lawyer has drafted. This is your only path forward. My father picked it up with a shaking hand. The terms are simple, I explained, my voice cold again. The trust is dissolved. The house remains in my name. You will no longer receive a stipend. You will live here rent-free, and I will pay the property taxes and utilities directly. That is all. There will be no more discretionary money, no golf trips, no expensive lunches, no new grills, and absolutely, under no circumstances, will 1 more cent of my money go to Tessa. My father read the page and his face crumpled. Grace, there's nothing left. We can't live like this. This is how retired people on a real fixed income live, Dad, I said. You wanted to be retired, free of responsibility. This is it. You've done your time, remember. My mother just stared at the document, her mouth open, the full, shocking extent of her downfall finally landing. The spell was broken. The bank was closed. The comfortable, easy life they had taken for granted was over. Her reaction wasn't to apologize for the fraud. It was to mourn the loss of the money. And that told me everything I needed to know. My mother looked up from the document, her puffy eyes narrowing. The desperation was gone, replaced by a flash of the old, familiar indignation. You're going to pauperize us, your own parents, after all we did for you. What you did for me? I asked, my voice dangerously low. I paid for my own college, I paid for my own car, I built my own career. What I have, I earned. What you have, I gave you. And you stole it and you gave it to Tessa. This isn't a punishment. This is a correction. But, Tessa, my father stammered, she'll be on the street. She can't. She's not like you, Grace. She's not strong. That is not my problem, I said. You have 30 days to inform her that her rent will no longer be paid. I suggest she get a job. Maybe she can live authentically on a minimum wage. Suddenly, there was a frantic pounding on the front door. Mom, Dad, are you in there? Let me in, I know you're in there. It was Tessa. My father jumped, startled. My mother looked at me, her eyes wide with panic. Oh no, she must have followed us. You told her you were coming here, I stated. It wasn't a question. David stood up, a protective stance in front of me and Leo, who had woken from his nap and was watching from the hallway, confused. Grace, I can ask her to leave. No, I said. Let her in. Let's have this all out right here, right now. David opened the door. Tessa burst in, her face blotchy and furious. She was holding her phone. You can't do this. My landlord just sent me an eviction warning. My rent is due. Mom, Dad, tell her. This was the showdown. the public, humiliating climax of their own making. "Tessa, dear, please, calm down," my mother started, wringing her hands. "I will not calm down," she shrieked. "She's trying to ruin my life just because you wouldn't watch her bratty kid for one afternoon." The word bratty hung in the air. David took a warning step toward her. I held up a hand. I was perfectly, terrifyingly calm. "You're right, Tessa," I said. "That's exactly what this is about. It's about a 3-hour favor that my mother, who you see standing here, refused to do. She refused because she was busy spending the $1,500 I earn, which she fraudulently siphoned to you, so you, a 34-year-old woman, can continue to play blogger, while I, a partner at one of the top firms in the city, work 60-hour weeks." Tessa's jaw dropped. She looked at our parents. You told her." "They didn't have to," I said. "You're sloppy. You used a card I track. I have every receipt, every transfer. $36,000, Tessa. That's not a little help. That's grand larceny." Tessa's face, for the first time, registered genuine fear. The legal implication of what I'd just said finally hit her. "Mom, Dad, do something," she pleaded, her voice cracking. And then, the most pathetic, predictable thing in the world happened. My father, the enabler, the man who just 5 minutes ago was begging me for forgiveness, turned to me. "Grace, please," he said, his voice wheedling. "She's your sister. We can't let her be homeless. Just 1 more month. Just give her 1 more month to get on her feet. We'll pay you back, somehow." I looked at him. I looked at my mother, who was nodding eagerly, seeing a tiny crack of light, a way to get the money flowing again. This was the final, powerful moment of realization. They would never change. They would always choose the black hole of Tessa's need over my stability. They would beg and lie and steal from me to protect her. I laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. "Pay me back," I said. "With what? You have no car, you have no income, you have no assets, you have nothing. You are entirely, 100% dependent on my goodwill, and you have just, finally, exhausted it." I turned to Tessa. "You have 24 hours to get out of your apartment, or I will be contacting your landlord directly and informing him that you have been paying your rent with funds obtained through fraudulent means. I will also be filing a report. You will not only be evicted, you will be unrentable." Tessa let out a sound of pure, animalistic despair. She turned on our parents. You let her do this. You were supposed to handle her. You promised me. You promised you'd keep the money coming." And there it was, the final, triumphant break, the public admission of the conspiracy. My mother crumpled onto the sofa, sobbing. My father just stood there, his mouth open, a broken, empty man. I walked to the front door and opened it. "Tessa, get out of my house." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive. "I hate you," she whispered. "The feeling is mutual," I said. "Go." She ran out the door, a wailing, collapsing storm of her own making. I turned back to my parents, who were huddled together on my couch, a pathetic portrait of ruin. "Sign the agreement," I said, my voice void of all emotion. "Or I will have you both evicted for breach of trust by the end of the month. The choice is yours. You are no longer my parents. You are my tenants, and you are on your final warning." My father, his hand shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen, signed the new family agreement. My mother, her face buried in her hands, just nodded, and he scribbled her signature for her. "David," I said. He stepped forward and signed as the witness. I took the document and put it in my briefcase. "You have 1 hour to arrange for a taxi or a ride-sharing service," I said. "Then I need you to leave." They didn't argue, they didn't speak. They sat on my couch in silence for 30 minutes. A taxi finally pulled up. I watched from the window as my 2 parents, who just 1 week ago were confidently planning to buy a new grill with my money, climbed into the back of a yellow cab. I felt nothing. No pity, no sadness, just empty. The long, draining task of managing their lives was finally over. The aftermath was swift. Tessa, true to form, imploded. She crashed at a friend's apartment, flooding social media with vague, dramatic posts about family betrayal and toxic energy. When that failed to produce any financial support, she finally did what she should have done 15 years ago. She got a job. I heard through the grapevine she was a hostess at a mid-level chain restaurant. She sent me one final, rambling email, which I forwarded to Tom and then blocked her address. My parents fell into a quiet, Spartan existence. They were, for all intents and purposes, grounded. Without a car and without any discretionary income, their social life vanished. The book club invitations stopped. The golf games ceased. They were forced to live within the precise, unyielding boundaries I had set. About 6 weeks after the confrontation, I received a letter in the mail. It was a single-page, handwritten note from my father. "Grace," it began, "I don't know what to say. Your mother is not doing well. She stays in her room most of the day. This has been harder than I ever imagined. But I want you to know one thing. You were right. We took you for granted. I let your mother and I let Tessa blind me. I was a coward. I was not a father to you. I was just a dependent. I am ashamed. I don't ask you to forgive us. I just want you to know that I see now. I see everything. And I am sorry. I truly am." I read the letter, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the cold emptiness began to recede. It was the first honest thing he had said to me in my adult life. I didn't reply. 6 months passed. My new role as partner was demanding, but incredible. I was thriving. David and I were happier than we'd ever been, and Leo was growing into a bright, happy little boy, free from the toxic cloud of my family's entitlement. We had found our own peace. One Sunday, I was packing a picnic basket for me, David, and Leo. We were going to the park. My phone, which I now kept on silent most of the weekend, lit up. A text message. It was from my father. "We are walking to the park near our house. It is a beautiful day." A few minutes later, another text. A picture. It was of my mother, kneeling in a public rose garden, smiling tentatively at the camera. She looked older and thinner, but her eyes were clear. I showed the picture to David. "What do you want to do?" he asked, his hand on my shoulder. I thought for a long moment. I thought about the fraud, the lies, and the years of being taken for granted. And I thought about that one, small, honest letter. I texted my father back. "We are at the park too, the one by our house." I sent him a picture of Leo, laughing on the swings. He replied almost instantly. "He looks so big, we miss him." I looked at the text. "We miss him, not we miss your money. Not when can we have the car back, just that." "Maybe," I said to David, "maybe one day we can have a picnic, at a park, halfway between our houses." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a start. My professional network had helped me secure my finances and draw up the legal boundaries that saved my sanity. But it was my own strength that had saved my family, the one I had built with David and Leo. The resolution wasn't about them, I realized. It was about me. I had finally, definitively, stopped being their utility and started being my own person. The consequences for them were severe, but the peace it brought me was priceless. I had my vindication, and more importantly, I had my life back.